Good day! Hello learners! I am Jeorge Mercado, your TLE teacher. Welcome to our TLE class. Today, I will discuss the use of basic tools in embroidery. For learning task number 1, I will read the poem and listen carefully, then answer the question and the next slide. Now, I will read the poem. Listen carefully. The wind is sowing with the needles of rain, with shining needles of rain. It stitches into the thin cloth of earth in, in. Oh, the wind has often so with me. One, two, three. Spring must have fine things to wear, like other springs. Of silken green the grass must be embroidered. One, two, and three. Then every crocus must be made so subtly as seem afraid of lifting color from the ground, and after crocuses the ground hands of tulips and all the fair, intricate guard that spring will wear. The wind must sow with the needles of rain, with shining needles of rain, stitching into the thin cloth of the earth in, 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 for all the springs of futurity. One, two, three. That's the end of the poem. Now, we'll proceed to the next slides. For learning task number 1, I have here two questions. First is, what is the poem all about? Then, for question number 2, name the embroidery tools and materials mentioned in the poem. Then, we will proceed to the next. For learning task number 2, I have here a picture. Uh, Observe the image, identify the embroidery tools and materials. For learning task number 3, name the embroidery tools and materials that you had saw in the previous slides. Learning task number 4. Based on your answers in learning task number 3, categorize the items as embroidery tools and materials by writing them in appropriate column. There are the two columns. The first columns is for the embroidery tools, and the second column is for the embroidery materials. Next is the tools and the materials that commonly used in embroidery. I have here a picture of the tools and the materials that commonly used. The gauge, the tape measure, the thimbles, the embroidery hoop or stiletto, the embroidery scissors, the needle threader, the embroidery needle, the thread, pin cushion, paper tracer, sewing box, and the fabric. To its uses. Gauge. Gauge is used for measuring more than 1 foot distance or materials. Tape measure. Used for measuring more than 1 foot distance or materials. Thimbles. Made from metal or plastic. Protect the middle finger and push the needle while doing your embroidery work. These come in sizes from 6 small to 12 large. Embroidery hoop or stiletto is commonly made of wood, bone, metal, or plastic, used to make eyelets in the fabric to be embroidered. It is also used to keep the fabric stretched while embroidery stitches are applied on the design. Embroidery scissors is a small, sharp, and pointed, good for fine work, used for trimming scallops, clipping threads, and cutting large eyelets. Needle threader is used for easier threading, especially by those sewers with poor eyesight. Embroidery needle. It is a short pieces of steel with a fine point at one end and a little opening or eye at the other. Embroidery floss. Floss is commonly used in a surface embroidery, needle painting using a long and short stitch or satin stitch, cross stitch, and counted thread techniques. Pin cushion. A place for pins and needles. Tracing paper. Used for tracing designs. Sewing box. Used to keep together the embroidery tools and materials. Fabric. Sometimes referred to as a cloth, are of great variety and they differ in material, weight, weave, design, color, and finish. Now, we will proceed to learning task number 5. Observe the image carefully. Which of these pictures is a handmade embroidered item? Support your answer by writing your observations in the picture letter of your choice. To view these pictures clearly, it will be sent to your group chat room. Write your answer on your activity sheets. Learning task number 6. Name the embroidery stitches used in the handmade item and learning task number 5. Write your answer on your activity sheet. For learning task number 7, identify the embroidery stitches based on a description given. Write your answer on your activity sheet. I am the most often used stitch in outline design. What am I? I am a solid filing stitch that is used to cover a design area. What am I? I am a single detached stitch used to fill in a design area. What am I? I am usually used for flower stems and outlines. What am I? I am the stitch that you can form by two crossing arms. What am I? Good day. Today I will demonstrate to you the 4 types of stitches. First, the the lacy daisy stitch, the stem stitch, the back stitch, and the knot stitch. But before we proceed to the lesson, first prepare all the materials and tools needed. First is the embroidery hook, the embroidery scissors, the needle threader, the embroidery needle, the embroidery thread, and lastly, the fabric. First, I will demonstrate to you on how to make lacy daisy stitch. First, secure the fabric in the embroidery hooks. Make sure that the fabric is taut inside the hook. To assess our lessons, I will be making a floral motif. For that, I have made a focal point by marking a small ring as my stitch line. My stitches will begin at the edge of this ring. Now we will begin to the step 1. Bring out the thread through point A. Put the needle near point A. And bring it out through point B. But don't pull the needle out completely. Now loop the thread around the needle like we would in a chain stitch. Pull out the needle to tighten the loop. Put the needle just outside the chain and created that well-finished lacy daisy stitch. Since I have decided to make a flower, I will proceed in making multiple lacy daisy stitch around the marked stitch line. This is the completed flower made of multiple lacy daisy stitch. Now, I will proceed to the stem stitch. Stem stitch is one of the easiest to be done and perhaps even one of the first stitches taught to any beginner. Let us now get to the procedure. To make it logic clear, I have drawn a temporary stitch line with a pencil. A stitch line is through which all the stitches will be running. Now, note that the all stitch points in the stem will fall on the stitch line. I will be working this stitch from left to right. This instruction is for right-handed learners. Now, bring out the thread through point A and take it into point B. Take the needle backwards, the thread out through point C. This is the point C. Make sure that the point C lies over the stitch in between point A and point B. Also note that the line C lies on the top of the stitch of stitch A and stitch B. So, all the subsequent points will be lie on the top of their previous stitch. Then, take the needle into the try to mark D in such a way that the point B will lie on the halfway between C and D. So, the pattern of 2 stitches of the stem stitch will be shown. Now, continue this pattern of stitching with the needle coming out to the point of the previous stitch always. Now, this is the completely stem stitch procedure. And you will notice at the back of this stitch, it will give you a back stitch pattern. The third stitch that I will demonstrate is the back stitch. First, bring the thread through point A and make it into B. This creates 1 stitch. Now, second, bring the thread through point C and take it in through V. This way, we are creating a stitch by taking the thread backward. Then, bring the thread through D and take it into C. Continue this pattern to finish the design. This is the completely back stitch. A finished line of back stitch will look like this. And for the last type of stitch that I'm going to demonstrate is the French knot stitch. The French knot stitch is one of the most easiest of all knots. Interestingly, however, it is often held as one of the most difficult to handle or difficult to do stitches. How to do the French knot? Now, bring the needle out to A. Now, place the needle close to the fabric. Wrap the thread around and twice as shown. Keep the longer end of the thread pulled with your fingers while putting the needle back into the point as close to point A. This is probably what you have to master. Then, pull out the needle through the fabric. Now this is the finished French knot stitch. Now I've already finished the 4 types of stitches. Here is the lacy daisy stitch, the stem stitch, the back stitch, and lastly the French knot stitch. And that's all. Hoping that you learned a lot from my demonstration. Thank you for watching.